Hello, everyone, and welcome to another edition of the Investing Across Borders show with Miri Lenoff. And today we have a very, very special guest. His name is Bob Bluhm, and he works with a lot of our clients setting up entities and setting up the structure businesses when they do business in the US. Guys, this is an amazing attorney. He's been doing this for 38 years. He's the asset protection team, and he specializes in representing Canadians investing in the US, in US real estate. If somebody knows this topic, it's definitely Bob Bluhm. So thank you so much for joining us today.
You're welcome. Glad to be here.
People are always asking, what is the ideal legal structure for Canadians doing business in the US?
Well, it's not only the ideal legal structure, it's really the only legal structure that a Canadian should use when investing in US real estate. And the big concern is that we want to make sure that we are not double taxed. One taxation is bad enough, two taxations is awful. And here's why. We're dealing with two different tax regimes. We have the IRS in the US and we have the CRA in Canada. And just some quick background. Taxation for a Canadian is based on residency. So for a Canadian who is a resident of Canada, they are required to pay taxes on worldwide income. Now, the problem, just to contrast this, that's not that bad because if you were a US citizen, a taxation in the US is based on citizenship, not residency. And so you can never escape having to pay the IRS if you are an American citizen, no matter where you live in the world. Canadians, on the other hand, can leave Canada, no longer be a resident of Canada, and you have no obligation to the CRA at that point. So the problem is the IRS also says if you earn income in the United States, we don't care who you are or where you live or what citizenship you have or residency, you have to pay income taxes on the income you earn in the United States. And so the problem becomes we're earning income in the US, we have to pay tax to the IRS, and then we have to add that income earned in the US to our Canadian income and pay the CRA all over again. That would be double taxation. So instead, what we want to do is use the only tool that we can use in the US to avoid double taxation, and that is called a limited partnership. The reason that avoids double taxation is because it is viewed by both the IRS and the CRA in exactly the same way. The IRS considers a limited partnership to be a pass-through entity, which means there is no tax at the entity level. The limited partnership itself does not pay tax. The income passes through to you as an individual and you pay ordinary income tax on that income. Luckily, the CRA also views that the limited partnership exactly the same way. It is a pass-through entity. And so the good news is you would pay personal income tax on that income in Canada. You pay personal income tax on the same income in the US. And because there is a tax treaty between Canada and the United States, now you're able to take a tax credit, meaning that you are not, in other words, you will be credited for any taxes paid in the US that you may also owe in Canada by using the one correct structure, which is a limited partnership. Now, the other major reason why we want to use a limited partnership is because we need liability protection from lawsuits. And as most Canadians are aware, it's still the wild, wild west in the United States, and people will sue each other at the drop of a hat. And that's not the way it is in Canada, thank goodness. You have a much saner legal system than we do in the United States. So liability protection is one major reason we want to use a limited partnership. The second is to avoid double taxation.
Totally makes sense. And something to remember is that you need to be true to your own tax issues in Canada as well, which is why we always say that it's not a one-size-fits-all approach. So this is why all of our clients speak with our cross-border tax advisor before speaking to our amazing expert, Bob, because there's a lot of other issues that go into play. There's additional complexities to take into account, additional factors, and it's like a conduit of sorts that allows you to pass by the double taxation. And liability protection is overlooked way too often. So I just want to make sure people know this, because again, we're in a lot of different places, and it's important for people to understand this. So what are some of the things that you've seen recently with some clients, specifically on real estate? So I don't know if you can share with us some of the things that you've seen, some of the problems that you've encountered that maybe you want to talk about, so that people don't make the same mistakes.
Well, sure. And that's a very good question. I encounter Canadians who want to invest in the US, and somehow they've gotten very, very bad advice. They maybe have worked with a US real estate agent who says, well, just use an LLC. Everybody I work with uses an LLC, and why don't you? The same thing might be because they've ended up in a program that is US based. In other words, there is, as you mentioned, Miri, there is a lot of complexity that working with a group that specializes in Canadians investing in the US real estate, like investing across borders, that kind of a team is invaluable, because it's not the same as just a US investor buying US real estate, not by any means. So you really do need guidance. And the problems I see is that a Canadian may get involved with a US based real estate group, a coaching group. And the US coaching group has no idea about how to structure a Canadian, and they just set up LLCs for everybody. And an LLC is going to result in double taxation. One of the reasons is it's not viewed by the CRA and the IRS the same way. And so we have personal income in the US from an LLC, but we have corporate income in Canada from an LLC. And because it's apples to oranges, personal to corporate income, there is no offset under the tax treaty. So we always want to use a limited partnership. That's one of the biggest problems that we see. And that is that a Canadian investor just kind of assumes that it's going to be fine. You just listen to whatever the US based person has to say, and let's just do that. That's what everybody else does, use an LLC. So why not? Well, Americans use LLCs. And not Canadians.
Exactly. So this is, and I know that if you're following on Facebook, Lauren is posting that we have the SREI model, which is specifically for Canadians, and well, mostly Canadians, because that's what we usually work with. But if you're not from Canada, we can also work with you, where Caroline Gallardo, Lauren's partner, and Lauren, we work with our clients so that they make sure that we avoid all of these issues. And it's strategic real estate investing, which is SREI. And we've had a month ago or a few weeks ago, our first visa for this program. And there's a lot more coming now following this approval of the visa. So we're very excited. And that's exactly why SREI was created, because there's no other program like it, where you actually get to talk to people like Bob, who actually know what they're doing. They talk to Canadians every single day, every single time, and they can guide you in the right process when it comes to the visa, when it comes to setting up the entity, the real estate investments, properties, using Caroline Gallardo's expertise when it comes to real estate, and using Lauren and investing across borders when it comes to the visa. So that's really by invitation only. So if you're interested, you can let us know. But it's really a strategic approach, like a comprehensive approach, as opposed to just going at it and finding a property in Florida. The price looks good, let's buy it, and then you're going to be in trouble. So that's what SREI is all about.
And Miria and Shema, if I could just add, Lauren has created an amazing team for SREI. It's a great program, and she's put together tax experts, legal experts such as me, immigration experts, and she's covered all the bases and made sure that any possible question it will be covered by a professional who works in that area, specializing in representing Canadians. And so it's an amazing team that Lauren's put together. And I would really encourage anybody who has any questions at all to schedule a consult with the Investing Across Borders team, because I think you'll be amazed at the depth of knowledge, the breadth of knowledge, and the way that team can really answer all of your questions. So it's a great team.
Thank you so much for that. Really, you have been so instrumental in making sure that all of these entities are set up in the right way. I love all of your little diagrams that are all over the place, understanding what happens. We're breaking the really complicated things into very simple things that when it comes to this, it's not just one approach. We have to look at other things, where people are investing and everything like that. So we love you, Bob. Thank you for saying those words. Is there something that you would like to add that maybe I should have asked you that I didn't ask you? Because I think this we can talk about this forever, for hours. I feel like specific that you want to point out.
Yes, and what I'd like to point out is that we've spoken here in generalities because it's a general approach. When we actually talk with you, we get very, very specific and then customize what the structure would be for you in particular. It's not a cookie cutter approach by any means where everybody gets the same thing. We're not stamping out widgets here. These are very individualized legal structures for you to meet your particular needs. And so while we speak in generalities to a general audience, when we are able to talk with you one-on-one, that is when we're able to make adjustments and customize exactly what needs to be done for you and your particular situation.
Yeah, and you mentioned personalized, and I just want to add one more thing. Sometimes people who come to us to help them to set up their entities, they're looking to invest in different states, different types of, whether it's a multifamily or there's so many different options, really. I mean, I know Florida, Arizona, Texas, they always seem to be the biggest market and where a lot of people are investing, but there's other people who want to invest, especially Canadians. We've had some people that want to invest in Michigan because it's just so close and there's a lot of opportunity there. So do you want to just mention a little bit about that, Bob, so that people understand the personalized approach that this really entails?
Well, yes. And in Canada, you have a concept called a federal corporation, where you're able to set up a federal corporation and do business across all the provinces in Canada. We don't have that concept in the States. They're all provincial corporations, so to speak. And what that means is that if you're going to invest in Michigan, we have to have a Michigan entity to own those Michigan properties because you're doing business in Michigan. And the state of Michigan will require by their law that if you're doing business in their state, you've got to have a Michigan entity. Not only is that a legal requirement, but also it's a practical requirement that you want to have. And the reason is, if you are doing business in Michigan, let's say, or in Florida or Alabama or Texas or Arizona or any place, and you do not have an entity in that state, then if you ever needed to avail yourself of the legal system in that state, maybe to evict a tenant who's not paying rent for some reason, the courts would not hear your case. You would not be able to evict that tenant because you don't have standing in that state by failing to have an entity in that state. So there are very important reasons why we would need to set up entities in particular states. And that is just one of many, many factors that we take into consideration.
Perfect. Thank you so much for mentioning that. A lot of people think that you don't need to do that, and they might as well just file it in North Dakota. So it's very, very important that we take care of all of our clients. So if you're watching and you want to understand this a little bit better, let's schedule a consult, because the first step is understanding your particular situation. None of our clients have the same path. They all have different paths. And that's why we love doing this, because it's your future. You're achieving your own American dream, nobody else's. And your version of American dream is very different than somebody else's. So that's why we do what we do. Thank you so much for joining us, Bob. We love you. We appreciate you so, so much. So thank you for being here.
You bet. Happy to be here.
And again, the next step for you is to schedule a consult. Investingacrossborders.net/consult. And we look forward to seeing you there. Bye-bye, everybody. Have a great day.
Bye-bye.